On behalf of myself and Life Vest Inside, I want to welcome you to World Kindness Week. One of my favorite quotes about kindness is from the Dalai Lama, or at least it is said that he said this, and that is, be kind whenever possible, and it's always possible. So we're living in a world right now where we can look around and see so much division, so much finger pointing, so much blaming. Spend any time on social media and you can see people opinionating about their point of view, making someone else wrong. That, of course, could be viewed as the opposite of kindness. Perhaps the opposite of kindness is judgment. And so I'm guessing if you're watching this, you are already aware of how important it is for each of us to bring kindness in the world. Right now, we are living in extraordinary times. We're living in times where we see political division. We're living in times, as I said, as we see finger pointing and blame. As a matter of fact, there are entire websites dedicated to spreading judgment, quite frankly. So it is imperative at this moment that those of us who are conscious beings, who are willing to bring kindness into the world, say yes to the calling, because it is of utmost importance right now. So rather than going into the importance of kindness or what kindness is, I want to actually explore a bit of how we actually can tap into the innate kindness that lives within us. In my experience, we come into this world as whole and perfect beings. If you look at a very young child, you can see them very connected to their pristine self. In other words, kindness is our natural state. Most of us are born into family systems, maybe spiritual or religious institutions, school, kindergarten. Remember kindergarten? Recess. Many of us come into this world and get programmed to believe that we are broken in some way or that we are limited in some way. In my own journey, I remember coming into this world and feeling absolutely connected with the truth of who and what I was and who and what I am. And through a series of events, I lost my connection with that essential beingness. Now, how does this relate to kindness, and why is it important to address this before we even move into a conversation about how we can be more kind in the world? In my experience, when we disconnect with our essential truth, our essential beingness, we end up looking to the world to try to feel whole again. Another possibility, that is, if we feel broken, we act broken in the world. Or if we feel broken or damaged in some way, we may also have a belief that the world is broken and damaged in some way. This is important because, of course, nothing could be truer and sometimes less useful than to say to ourselves, we should be more kind. To me, the journey is really a journey inward. In my experience, we are all wanting love and connection. Also, in my experience, it is when we are disconnected from our essential beingness, our true nature, that we feel broken, that we feel damaged. And then, as I said, we're either looking to the world to try to help ourselves feel whole again, or we're unconsciously seeing that damage everywhere. In other words, the true journey is a journey in reconnecting with our essential nature and not trying to learn how to be more kind, but to remember that kindness is our natural state. For me, the experience of this is twofold. One, asking myself the question, how do I reconnect with my essential self? How do I recognize that life really isn't a journey toward something? I don't need to learn how to be kind, but to reconnect with the kindness that I am. This is a fundamental difference. So the first part of this is dedicating myself to spending some time reconnecting with that essential self, that true nature. That might mean meditation, time in the silence, slowing down, spending some dedicated time recognizing that we have thoughts and opinions, but we are not our thoughts and opinions. Why is that important in the conversation of kindness? When I believe I am my point of view, and I believe that there is one solid answer, there is good, there is bad, there is right, or there is wrong, I find it more difficult to be kind to people who have a different point of view. When I have dedicated myself to spending time in the silence through a mindfulness, a yoga, a meditation practice, or even just walking in nature, when I deeply reconnect with the truth of who and what I am, and I recognize that just like I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts, that's also true for you. In other words, when I know who and what I really am, I can see that in you as well. Perhaps that's a deeper level of kindness even than being kind. Being kind could be seen as an action. Of course it is, but I'm approaching it in a little bit different way. And that is remembering that kindness is who and what we are. And radiating the frequency of kindness is actually what creates a profound shift on the planet. So that's one, dedicating some time to reconnecting with the kindness that we are. The second piece for me is also questioning every point of view, every perspective I have about myself and the world. So if it is true that we come into this world as whole and perfect beings, unharmed and unharmable, there is that place within us that is still that. And that the true journey is remembering or reconnecting. So if it's true that underneath all of our points of view, our perspectives, our opinions, our political opinions, our ideas about good and bad and right and wrong, if it's true that underneath that, there is this place within ourselves that is still kindness itself, then we can begin to question what we've put on top of that love energy or that kindness that we are. One of the most powerful practices for me in doing this is what I call living in the question. I invite myself to choose a question that helps me open up to seeing the world in a different way. Because it's true that life is perspective. How much of life is perspective? For me, 100%. In other words, it's less what's happening in the world and more about what I'm calling what's happening in the world that creates what we call reality. So if I'm finding myself focusing on the division, if I'm focusing on, oh, I need to be more kind, but it's hard for me, let's unplug from that and start to question our points of view. Question every belief you've ever had, every idea about yourself and the world. So we actually experience the world not based on what we're seeing, but the lens at which we're looking at life through. And that's the great news, because if that's true, that also means that we can change what we call reality. So living in the question is quite simple. One, it might just be questioning myself, noticing that I have a judgment. Oh, where did I get that idea? I wonder if there's a different way to look at this. I wonder who taught me that. I remember at some point in my evolution, probably in my 20s, I was really unaware that I had a brutal inner critic. And I also realized that I had picked that up from some of the family members that I grew up with. I wasn't even aware that I had this narrative about myself and the world. So as a wise person once said, the first 3 steps are awareness, awareness, and awareness. I'm aware that I create reality based on my point of view. I'm aware that because I have a particular point of view, it affects not only the way I see the world, but actually every relationship and every situation in my life. And I'm also aware that I can change that. I can begin to question that. So if I notice myself having a judgment, if I notice myself getting worked up, if I read something on social media, I can pause. I can allow myself to actually feel what I'm experiencing. Notice if I have a judgment or a point of view, and then start to question that. Not from a place of trying to make myself wrong, but asking myself what else is possible here. Once I understood that I create my life based on my point of view and the frequency I'm holding, that was a game changer, because I recognized then that I can choose which thoughts I attach to. A friend of mine once said, I'm not responsible for my first thought, but I am responsible for what I do with it. That could be true for emotions. That could be true for the frequency we're holding. But what I want to offer as a practical tool for you as I move toward closing this conversation is living in the question can be profound. So as I said, you can notice if you have a reaction, what we might call a trigger. I call that an activation. Something got touched. I can be aware of my feelings and my thoughts and question them. But another way to implement this practice, which for me is really profound, and that is to choose a question and simply live in it. Maybe it's a 20-minute meditation where you take a question into meditation, open into questions that are empowering rather than disempowering, like, what is wanting to emerge in my life now? What else is possible for me in this moment? How does it get even better than this? So for example, if you are to, let's say you lost a job, you might notice that you have a point of view about that. Why does this keep happening to me? We can shift to what else is possible? What is wanting to emerge here? Another way to use the questioning process is to take a question with you throughout the day. Who should I connect with today? What is my true nature? Who am I really? So we live in these questions. And in closing, what I want to say is I want to, draw this or connect this with what does this have to do with kindness, compassion, and connection? It's quite simple. When I'm deeply connected with my true nature, I can live in the world knowing that who and what I am is unharmed and unharmable. And when I know that, not only do I find myself having a higher ability to be kind to people, I am literally vibrating in the frequency of kindness. And as we know, we can literally feel the frequency, the energy field of the people around us. So it's a ripple effect that changes the world. As Maya Angelou said, you'll forget what people said or even what people did, but you won't forget the way you felt when you were with them. So my invitation for you in closing is to ask yourself the question, how can I tune in to the frequency of kindness? What if that's your true nature? What would it take for you to have the great remembering of that, to tap into that, to dedicate some time feeling into that and questioning all the barriers and all the layers of beliefs and ideas and experiences you put on top of that? You are the one you've been waiting for. This is a time on planet Earth and in our universe that we are called to be kindness in the world. And yes, as the Dalai Lama said, it is always possible. Peace and blessings to you.